So today, we're going to pull back the curtain on this really elegant kind of hidden rule that's making our whole renewable energy future actually possible. It's a brilliant piece of engineering that helps keep the lights on, even when the sun isn't shining or, the wind isn't blowing.
This is one of the biggest questions in energy today, right? We all love solar and wind power, but let's be honest, they're intermittent. And that creates this massive challenge for a grid that demands perfect second-by-second balance. So how do we actually solve that?
Okay, so to really get the solution, first we've got to wrap our heads around the problem. We're smack in the middle of this fundamental shift in how we generate and manage electricity. And believe me, it is a tricky transition.
Think about it. For like 100 years, our grid was, well, predictable. You had a few huge, centralized power plants just pumping out a steady, controllable stream of electricity. Pretty easy to manage. The new grid is kind of the Wild West. Power's coming from millions of decentralized sources, rooftop solar panels, giant wind farms, and they're unpredictable and scattered all over the place. This makes balancing supply and demand incredibly complex.
You see, at the absolute heart of this new grid are these little magic boxes called inverters. The thing is, solar panels and batteries, they produce DC power, but our grid runs on AC. So inverters are the electronic brains that do that conversion from DC to AC. They're the critical go-between. They're the new backbone. And getting them all to play nicely together, well, that's the key.
Okay, so how on earth do we manage this new, super complex system of inverter-based power? Well, the first part of the answer is to think smaller and smarter. And that brings us to this really cool concept, the microgrid.
So what is a microgrid? Well, you can think of it like a self-contained power grid for a small area, maybe a hospital campus, a neighborhood, or even a military base. The crucial part is that it can connect to the main grid, or it can run completely on its own. That ability is called islanding, and that makes it a single controllable unit.
And this is why there's such a huge deal. If the main grid goes down in a storm, a microgrid can just disconnect and keep its own lights on. I mean, that creates incredible resilience. Plus, by bringing in local renewables and storage, they also help us build a cleaner, more sustainable power system, literally from the ground up.
But, of course, there's a twist. While microgrids solve one massive problem, they actually create this new, really fascinating one inside their own little world. And that's the problem of teamwork. I mean, really think about it. Inside one of these microgrids, you've got multiple power sources, solar panels, wind turbines, batteries, and they all have to work together perfectly, sharing the electrical load in real time. But building some complex, centralized communication system to coordinate them all, that's expensive, and it's a huge point of failure. So, is there a better way?
And look, the stakes here are incredibly high. If this balancing act fails, if one source works too hard and another slacks off, the voltage and frequency can just spiral out of control and the whole microgrid can collapse. What we need is a simple, robust, and decentralized way for all these sources to just cooperate.
And that right there brings us to the hero of our story, this incredibly elegant idea known as Droop control.
So, at its heart, Droop control is just a simple rule that's programmed into each inverter. It lets each power source feel what's happening on the grid locally and then adjust its own power output automatically. There's no central brain, no complex communication network. It's decentralized teamwork in its absolute purest form. Okay, the absolute best way to get this is with an analogy. Just picture a team of people carrying a heavy table. When everything's balanced, they're all carrying an equal share of the weight. Now, what happens if one person gets a little tired? Their arms lower just a tiny bit. Their end of the table droops. What happens next? Instantly, without anyone saying a single word, the others feel that slight increase in weight and they instinctively lift harder to compensate. The load gets rebalanced automatically. And that right there, that's Droop control. Each inverter is like one of the people carrying that table. When the grid gets overloaded with demand, the overall system frequency naturally droops a little. If an inverter senses this slight drop, it knows the grid needs more power, and it automatically ramps up its output. If the frequency is too high, it eases off. It's a totally instinctual, automatic balancing act. So when you put these two side by side, you can see why Droop is such a game changer. It's the difference between having a micromanager shouting orders at everyone versus an experienced team that just knows how to work together. It's simple, it's robust, and because there's no central boss, there's no single point of failure. That makes the whole system incredibly resilient. Okay, so it's a simple rule for sharing the load. Big deal, right? Well, yeah, it's a huge deal. Let's zoom out for a second and look at the bigger picture. See how it all connects? Droop control makes microgrids actually work. Microgrids make our entire power system more reliable and more resilient against blackouts. And by doing that, they give us a safe and stable way to bring in massive amounts of renewable energy. This simple, decentralized rule is a foundational building block for a clean energy future. And don't just take my word for it. The researchers in our source material said it perfectly. The microgrid becomes this single, manageable unit. Its ability to generate flexible power is exactly what guarantees the reliability we all need. It's the key to making an unpredictable grid predictable again, one neighborhood at a time.
And that really leaves us with a fascinating question to chew on, doesn't it? We often look for these big, complex, top-down solutions to our energy challenges. But maybe, just maybe, the secret lies in a simple, decentralized rule that lets thousands of small systems work together in perfect, silent harmony.